President Biden says 90% of U.S. adults should be eligible for the COVID vaccine by April 19th, less than 3 weeks from now. According to the CDC, more than 95 million Americans have received at least one dose so far, and over 52 million have been fully vaccinated. But despite the progress, health officials warn another surge of infections may be coming as more states ease their safety restrictions. CBS News' Ed O'Keefe reports.
I'm going to pause here. I'm going to lose the script.
CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky with a stark warning as COVID-19 cases are up 11% over the past week.
And I'm going to reflect on the recurring feeling I have of impending doom. We have so much to look forward to, so much promise and potential of where we are, and so much reason for hope. But right now, I'm scared.
At a time when millions are on the road for spring break, Walensky and President Biden are discouraging non-essential travel. The president is once again calling on mayors and governors to reinstate mask mandates.
Please, this is not politics. Reinstate the mandate if you let it down. And business should require masks as well.
At least 8 states have dropped mask and social distancing restrictions in recent weeks, with no signs of reversing course. Meanwhile, the Biden administration says it's not taking the lead on developing so-called vaccine passports or certificates, now in use in New York, China, and Europe. There's concern about Americans having access to the technology needed and patient privacy.
The government here is not viewing its role as the place to create a passport, nor a place to hold the data of citizens.
That's because officials know many Americans won't want the government or private companies tracking your vaccination data. Florida's Republican governor, Ron DeSantis.
It's completely unacceptable for either the government or the private sector to impose upon you the requirement that you show proof of vaccine to just simply be able to participate in normal society.
All right, so Ed O'Keefe is joining us now with more on this. So Ed, I'm going to start with what we were talking about there, the back end of your story. This whole idea of vaccine passports. As you mentioned, federal government is not signing on to this concept, not taking the lead, but clearly they are popping up in certain places, New York being one of them. What's the latest on, I guess, this concept of a vaccine passport?
Well, it depends on the region of the country you're in and who you talk to. There's the argument for them and the argument against them. And it seems the administration here, at least, understands 2 things. One, equity in terms of access to technology that would allow you to use one of these. If you don't have a smartphone and the ability to download apps, or you don't live in an area with strong internet access, you're going to have difficulty using them. That's one concern. The other is the idea of the government or a private company holding onto your medical data. There's big concerns about that generally, but certainly in the case of the government knowing whether or not you have been vaccinated. And as you saw there, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is among those who raises concerns about the possibility that people who decide not to get vaccinated could somehow be discriminated against, either by the government or private companies, for not participating in this. So, we'll see where this debate ultimately settles, but this is a big reason why the administration doesn't necessarily want to get involved in developing this, other than some guidelines that they will set in terms of the privacy and what pieces of information might be needed.
All right. So I have a whole lot of different things to ask you about, so we're going to keep it moving.
Let's go.
President Biden is set to sign a 2-month extension to the Paycheck Protection Program later on today. What's included in that?
It essentially just keeps it going and then puts in place a few more sort of security barriers. There was some concern about information being shared from the companies going to the government. The Small Business Administration also getting involved with some extra loans. This has proven to be a very effective and popular program, especially with smaller businesses that need the relief. This was extended last week in a bipartisan vote in the House and the Senate. Continue through May 31st. I think the question at this point for programs like this that were established to help people during the pandemic, how much longer will they be needed beyond their current extensions?
The CDC is extending the federal moratorium on evictions. I know there was real concern that there would be, I think the phrase was, a tsunami of evictions once the moratorium was lifted, that, that courts kind of almost have the evictions already filed, and as soon as it's lifted, they're going to start going through them. So what's the latest on the moratorium extension?
Despite some reluctance, it seems, to do so, the CDC extending it now through June 30th, and this is for there's a federal moratorium on them. The CDC uses sort of the public health and safety concerns for the reason for doing this. But here again, there will be debate as to how much longer this can go on. Obviously, there are landlords that need to collect money here at some point. They're part of this economy, and they too are struggling. So we'll see how much longer it goes beyond June 30th. But for now, at least, a 3-month extension, which was sought by many concerned about the possibility that a lot of Americans could be put out of their homes because they can't make rent.
Busy day for the president. President Biden has announced his intent to nominate 11 judicial candidates. Currently, there are 68 judicial vacancies. I saw, some sort of op-eds suggesting that he was taking his time, that he was certainly behind his predecessor when it came to new appointments. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, this helps sort of lay the groundwork for the fulfillment of a bunch of campaign pledges. Democrats have been concerned since the Obama administration about the pace of judicial nominations and making sure that this White House was aggressive about putting names forward to fill those vacancies and making sure that they not only perhaps skew a little younger, as Republicans are very good at putting younger people on federal court vacancies in order to keep them in place for much longer, but also to make sure that those that are nominated reflect a broader sense of, or broader array of professional experiences, and also diversity. And in this case, the president today touting the fact that his 11 picks include 3 women who would be put on circuit courts or federal appeals courts across the country, as well as candidates who have confirmed would be the first Muslim American federal judge, the first Asian American Pacific Islander woman to ever serve on the U.S. District Court here in D.C., one of the more powerful district courts, and the first woman of color to serve as a federal judge in the District of Maryland. The name to watch, though, of these 11 is Ketanji Brown Jackson, the nominee for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. That is arguably, what many believe, the second most powerful federal court in the land because it's the appeals court based here in Washington from which a lot of people have graduated into the Supreme Court, among them Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Samuel Alito, as I recall, and I believe also Brett Kavanaugh was a member of that court. In this case, Ketanji Brown Jackson would succeed Merrick Garland, who, of course, had also been nominated to serve on the Supreme Court, but is now serving as Attorney General. As a candidate, you may remember, last year he vowed to put a black woman on the Supreme Court once a vacancy comes up. Ketanji Brown Jackson now seen as the best possible nominee for that if she spends a little time there on the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit here in D.C.
Very good. Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much.
Take care.